Welcome to the Southeast Retirement Planners podcast, where we will go beyond the balance sheet with our guests, not only to share from our personal experience as financial advisors of over 25 plus years, but also to learn from our guests about the issues and topics that are important to them. Our firm specializes in taking care of the financial plans for individuals and small businesses by helping our clients identify their individual goals and taking a conservative and ongoing approach to helping accomplish them. We are located in Hickory, North Carolina, and look forward to continuing to serve our clients and our community. Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Thank you for joining us. And for our guest today on our Southeast Retirement Planners podcast is Fran Paradine. And Fran came to Hickory in 2010 and is a great resource to our community, really on a number of levels, has a very successful history with a retail store and now working towards a health and wellness kind of environment. So I'm excited about our conversation today. I'm not sure where all it will go, but certainly looking forward to it. And for those of you who are listening or watching, tuning in, please click like and subscribe on whatever platform you're on, whether it's Spotify or our YouTube channel. And if you need any more information, you can find us online at www.seretirementplanners.com. So with that, thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me, Bob.
And thanks for my refreshment.
Oh, you're welcome.
What is this?
Favorites.
You have to talk about this a little bit, because I think it's delicious.
Well, there are not a lot of people who are brave enough to give it a try, but it is kombucha. Actually, that's not true. A lot of people love kombucha. So this kombucha is made by Bucci, which is a kombucha maker in Asheville. So it's relatively local. And it's called Fire, which is my favorite because it's got just a little hint of cayenne pepper in it for a little bit of, a little bite. And it's great for you.
Why? What? All right. First of all, it's a sour vinegar based something. What is this that we're? No, it's fermented.
It's
or
fermented
not, right?
tea. Yes.
Okay.
So kombucha, the base is fermented tea, and then they add different flavors in. But the benefit of fermented food is all of the probiotics that come with it. And if you are familiar, there's a whole new world of research that is being done that shows the importance of a healthy gut, healthy microbiome. To feed all that healthy bacteria in your gut, you use probiotics.
I have a very healthy gut.
Do you?
Well, I mean, like in size-wise, like healthy, like size-wise.
That's not what I'm talking about. No. So yeah, and it's got antioxidants in it.
It is really good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not terrible at all. Autumn started me drinking this stuff not long ago, and she's way healthier than I am, if anyone ever wondered about that. But so when she tells me to do something, I generally just do it. And no, it's great.
Good.
It really is good.
Good. Yeah, we've got 6 flavors on tap at the store. So
okay, so the store. I think first, part of why I wanted to spend a little time talking with you, there are really kind of a number of channels that we can go down in our discussion. But one of the things that I find particularly interesting is the side of health and wellness. And in my business, one of the things that we've said, and I've had a cardiovascular surgeon on with me before, and we've kind of had this conversation as well, that your health is wealth. And so from a financial planning standpoint, you can save all the money in the world and you can invest in the best things and make the best returns. And if you just drop dead of a heart attack, or if you don't enjoy your life, then what's the point, right? So I'm certainly not a health coach, and that's not my area, but I do think that's really important for people to understand. And it should be a part of the conversations that I have with my clients. Oh,
absolutely. So yes, wealth is one factor, right? We all want to feel financially stable. So that's important. I mean, that's important to our overall health.
Yeah.
Right. As our relationships, as our feeling like you're productive in your job, like there are all sorts of things that go into feeling healthy or overall wellness. What you eat and what you put in your body is one piece of that. And it's an important piece, but it also, I think, kind of reflects how you feel, right? If you're having a crappy day, you're going to choose crappy food, right? Or if you are just in general not feeling very good about yourself or kind of low self-esteem, you tend to not choose things that are going to work towards your wellness benefit. And so it's all interconnected.
It all matters.
Absolutely. And I do think, I mean, right, you're right. Like I could have $1 million, but if I'm completely unhappy in my marriage or miserable all day at work, it doesn't matter.
That's right.
So
I've loved some of your podcast topics have talked a little bit about some of this. I mean, your mental health and all that sort of stuff. So that's another piece, not only like the nutritional health and wellness, but then you have a background in counseling. And so we'll kind of talk about that. And you also have been a very successful entrepreneur in our area with several retail shops. It started with frozen yogurt, and did you have 3 delicious frozen yogurt places, right?
I did. That was a lot.
Yeah.
Yes, we kind of out of the gate opened 3, one in Hickory, one in Morganton, and one in Lenoir. And I not knowing what I was getting into, I would have done things really differently had I known.
Yeah.
It was too much for one person to try to be managing and running all of them.
Well, I'm sure you have a lot of time because you have no other responsibilities in the world, right?
Right.
So, all right. So let's back up before
Who
we get into
needed those 3 kids?
Yeah. So you came to Lenoir Rhine or to Hickory in 2010 by way of Lenoir Rhine because you're married to a world famous lacrosse coach.
Everybody knows who he is.
Everyone knows him. And he's the best at everything. We know. Yes. We love Greg.
Superstar.
And you have 3 children. 1 in college.
1 in college.
Yeah.
1 a senior in high school, and 1 a repeating freshman. We just erased that whole COVID
it's
year.
A COVID year. Yeah.
Nothing happened then.
Okay. So you came here in 2010 with younger kids, and now they're certainly getting older, and then decided to get into retail space and open up a business, 3 different locations of a business. What were the things you do different?
Okay, so first I had a private practice when we lived in Durham. So I had a private practice as a therapist. I was working as a psychotherapist, working with adolescents, parents. I worked with everybody, but for 10 years. And then we moved here, and I worked at Crossroads Counseling Center for a couple of years. And at that time, really started thinking about the connection between mental health and food and what we eat. There wasn't a whole lot of room to explore that. I was seeing a lot of clients, and I just had young kids. And then the opportunity came along to open a frozen yogurt bar. And I just thought, maybe that's a way to I love frozen yogurt. But I'm like, okay, well, maybe I can have groups in the store. Like I had all of these ideas. So really went into it very naive about what it actually entails to run a business. A retail business?
Yeah, I was going to say, there's a difference between running a business and then sort of public-facing, customer-based retail and food. Right?
Yes.
Like that's a tough nut to crack.
Yeah. And so we did 3. Like why, why just do 1?
If it's going to be painful, make it 3 times more painful.
Yes. So I kind of juggled that for several years, and then we ended up closing the store in Lenoir, and then I sold the one in Morganton, so it was 1 store. We're in Holler Mill, which is a beautiful mill. I love it. Not a lot of foot traffic.
Right.
So it's probably not the best choice for a store like mine.
Most of those stores are attached to some kind of a strip mall, some sort of a location like that has a lot more traffic, I guess. So,
yes. Yeah. So like the one in Morganton was a great location across from, in a big shopping center with a Walmart and a Dick's, and much more foot traffic and much more successful. That one was. But I love Holler Mill, and I love being there, and we're going to make it work.
Yeah.
That has been my commitment. We have the City Walk coming by us. So there's lots of good things happening there. And the whole area has kind of blown up a little bit. Moretz Mill, where you guys are, was not there when, or hadn't been renovated when we first opened.
No, it wasn't quite done, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
and you were one of the first tenants.
Yes, we were
right?
in Holler, like all by ourselves. Yes.
Yeah.
It was a pretty lonely time.
All right. So you've transitioned from that, but when you were building that, can you think of, I mean, what were those obstacles? What were those challenges that you just kind of like didn't see coming maybe? I mean, I know obviously all of it was very new and a new experience, just having to walk through that, but.
Yes. So, well, you asked what some things I would do differently. One, I would definitely explore financing in a different way. I took out personal loans and not a good choice.
Not generally. I mean, it's good to like bet on yourself.
Yeah.
Right. Everyone
not
likes to
that
say
much.
that, but when you have a whole business model around relying on customers and consumers, that's a tough thing to do.
Yeah. So next time I'll come talk to you first before I make any decision like that. But yeah, that was not a good choice. And a lot of my savings went to a lot of our savings. So that, I just was very naive, excited and naive and I'd had a private practice, but that's really different. It's a one person practice. It just is different from opening up a retail store. So, the other piece is that, I think the hardest part and the most important part, is staffing, having good employees who are, who you can rely on, who are engaging, and also recognizing, and this probably took me a little while to learn. I mean, as a therapist, I use those skills a lot, and just how I talk with people, how I can, engage kind of with a lot of different kinds of people in different stages of their lives and kind of in different emotional states. But recognizing people's strengths and that they may not do something the way I would do it. But I've learned over the years that if it gets done and I honor their process, things work out much better. Like if it gets done up to, the standards that it needs to be, and they figure out a new way to do it that's different from the way I do it, okay, that's awesome. So like really honoring who they are as individuals and what they bring. But there are standards, right? Like you have to be on time. You have to be engaging. You can't, there's basic standards. You need to keep the store clean.
Yeah. Some of that surprises me a little bit. I mean, because you're a very driven person. And it seems to me you're a very competitive person. You have a background in athletics your whole life. You work hard even now to stay very fit and healthy and do all this stuff. You're very driven. And for you to be able to let go of control and say, like, I'm honoring somebody else's process, those two things don't always align very well, right?
No. Yeah. No, I see that. I agree with that.
I mean, that's a very humbling, good self-assessment as a leader to know that the people that you're relying on may have different skills, may do some things better than you might do them. Or not as good as you might do them, but they still get the result that you want.
Yes.
Like
and
that's a real challenge to get to that place. Yeah.
Yes.
I would imagine so.
It has been a process. And
that's why most of us can't lead people or manage people because we don't like to do that.
Yeah. Well,
right?
The other thing is, I mean, I also got to a point where I was like, I can't micromanage everything. I mean, It was exhausting. Right. I mean, I would get anything that happened at the store, whether I was there or not, I would be getting a text about it. Oh, I can't find this. Oh, I can't find that. What about this? This doesn't look right. And so it was making me crazy. Mm-hmm. So it really was maybe self-preservation where I was like, look, this, and also putting systems in place. This is how it's done.
Yeah.
Writing up those systems. I mean, in a lot of ways, when you sign on with a franchise, you're hoping those systems come with the franchise.
Not so much.
I signed on to 2 brand new franchises that had no systems in place.
So everybody's trying to create the systems.
Yes.
No tried and true ways,
nothing.
no best practices.
No.
It's just like, oh, that's a good idea. We never thought of that.
Yep. And it's still happening.
Well, you did that with 3 at one time. So.
3 at one time, right? And I had no systems in place.
Right.
It was really crazy. And so
that seems like a really harebrained idea. Like now that I understand and sort of unpack it a little bit, just to come home and be like, I think I know what we're going to do next.
Yeah. Greg was like, okay.
Good luck with that.
Yep.
Right? I mean,
it was, yes, for sure. I remember Greg asking him like, well, what are your hours going to be? Who's going to run it? Like, how is that going to work?
Well, and how are you getting kids? Like right now, we're in a place where we have got a flipping taxi service going on. So how do you even get kids back? Because that was then. You didn't have drivers then.
No. Well, so this was my thinking about the kids. As a therapist, I had needed to have and did have very, very clear boundaries, right? My clients didn't know about my kids. My kids were never involved in my work. So I was like, my kids can come to work with, this is going to be great, like,
I'm sure they loved that idea.
They can come to work and I can leave when I think there's so much more flexibility. And it did eventually get there, but for the first, 9 to 12 months, I was there open to close. I mean, Greg was doing a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then my in-laws moved down. So that definitely helped. Huge, a huge amount.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
Yes.
It's weird just kind of the way things sort of seem to work out and kind of come together. When you've just got to get things done, you end up finding a way.
Yep.
One way or another. So.
Yep.
Well, how did you go from Delishy with frozen yogurt to now Incredible Edibles, and then
edible
sort
arrangements.
of what happens in edible arrangements and what happens next in terms of what this journey to health and wellness? And we'll touch on your podcast in a minute.
Okay. So as I said before, we signed on to 2 very new franchises, right? So Delishy was brand new. And the franchisee just one day just went away, just stopped communicating, So we actually really saw it as an opportunity to rebrand, to do something new. Frozen yogurt, had its peak probably the year before we opened.
Right.
And so it had been really hard to kind of be successful just with purely frozen yogurt. And because we were in a franchise agreement, there wasn't a lot we could do. So once that ended, we really kind of sat back and took a look. Okay, what do we have? And where can we go? And edible arrangements seemed like a really good match with us because we had a lot of the same things. We had the chocolate, we had the fresh fruit. Their busiest time is winter. Our busiest time was summer as frozen yogurt. And so we thought, well, maybe we can somehow get an edible arrangements in the store. Once we spoke with them and they came to see the building, they presented us with an idea of being the first ever Incredible Edibles store, which was the new kind of branch of edible arrangements. It was a new concept, and they were still kind of developing it, but they wanted to start with a retail place. And so we negotiated with them, and we were able to have both. So we had Incredible Edibles and edible arrangements, which they will never do again, and I will never do again because it's been really confusing having 2 separate stores under one roof that are kind of the same, kind of not the same. It's just been really, the hours are different. It's just been a weird concept.
And you don't have necessarily full autonomy over those things.
No.
Well, when you started with Delishy, there was a couple of things that, like the financing piece was something you do different. When you came into this arrangement, was that something that you were able to clear in a different kind of way that was a little bit smoother, or did you run into some of those same challenges?
I cleared it in a very different way.
Okay, good.
Because I had nothing left to offer. So
there you go.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm not spending any more of my savings.
Exactly.
Do we have a deal? Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And that, so kind of fast forward. So, but what that did for me, because the concept behind Incredible Edibles is wellness through food. So we were offering, the idea was to offer healthy alternatives and things with some healing power, right? So the kombucha was one of the things. Actually, That was our idea. That was not even a corporate idea. That was our idea.
Really?
Yes.
That's great. Okay.
And then CBD was kind of the mainstay that they came to us with. And for me, it provided a really cool opportunity to learn about CBD. I really didn't know much about it. And now I'm a huge fan.
Yeah.
Take it every night. And so from there, like that sparked my interest in how we use food to make us healthy and how we use food to make us not healthy. I mean, I think there's a lot of healing power within food if we choose to do it. I mean, we are in an epidemic of obesity in this country, and it's only gotten worse with COVID. And the number one risk factor for COVID is obesity.
Yeah.
So there's a huge need for people to just have a little bit more awareness of what it's doing inside our bodies. And so that's the piece that was really fascinating to me. Like, what is it doing? Like, how is that working? Like,
right. And there's so much content. There's so much data.
So
much research now.
Yes.
To know that what used to be the Atkins diet is now a keto something, or what I mean?
And is that good? I mean, is that a good choice?
Good or bad?
And maybe, so all of that stuff. And so then I, because there's so much, and I was kind of getting overwhelmed, but I was fascinated. I was like, I just need someone to tell me kind of what to read. So then I researched and found a program for integrative nutrition health coaching that I've loved.
Are you done with that program?
Not quite yet.
Okay, because that's been a journey, right?
Yeah. Okay. It's been fascinating. Like, I love it.
So we'll get into that. All right. So your retail space is still going to continue to provide some of those health and wellness solutions.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Before we move on from that, because I do want to talk about your podcast and just some of those things that are interesting to you. But the thought occurred to me, with your background in therapy and counseling, how do you approach hiring? Because my guess is that you have a pretty unique insight into just kind of the things you're looking for, or the red flags, or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's a challenge for a lot of people. Not many people hire well.
No, and I've certainly made plenty of hiring mistakes.
Sure.
But I have an unbelievable crew. And so I think I approach it, I've gotten much more systematic about, it used to be I would just meet with someone and talk with them and kind of go with a gut feeling.
Okay.
And but since I'm trying to systematize, is that a word?
Sure.
Today things I good. We'll use that today. Yeah. I now have kind of a protocol I follow when I'm talking to somebody. There are certain questions I ask, kind of, and then I also. So I usually come up with kind of a gut feel. Yeah, this person's a good fit. And it's not whether I like them or not only. It's whether they're going to be a good fit for the team, right? Because ultimately, they're not working with me, really. They're working as a team with my other employees.
Yeah.
And we have the cohesive group we have right now is amazing. And I feel like for the most part, I've had groups, I've had people who really work together well as a team. Mm-hmm. And I think that might be kind of part of the way I lead, because I've always been part of a team, right? Whether it's sports team growing up, my husband obviously is a coach, all my kids play sports. So there's always this kind of team mentality that everybody has their strengths. People have weaknesses. So let's maybe not isolate them in that area that's weak. Let's put them in an area where they're strong and have somebody else come in. And so I think what happens is the people who don't really fit kind of weed themselves out. Believe me, I've made plenty of hiring mistakes. Uh-huh. But the core that seems to stay and the core that comes back. I mean, that's the other thing. Like I have a bunch of employees who are off of college who, call me in November. These are my hours. Can I come back? Which is awesome.
Yeah.
Or for the summer, they want to come back for the summer. So
targeting like a team environment.
Targeting a team environment. Yeah. And yes, right. So you're asking about, you're trying to glean from them how they work in a stressful situation, right? Is it someone who's going to get real panicky and need a lot of comforting? Is it someone who's going to get angry and kind of stomp out? Is it someone who's going to kind of, diminish themselves if they get real and kind of go away? Because, when things are easy, they're easy. Like it's not a hard job.
Sure.
But it's in those moments, and particularly now with edible arrangements, because we have really, really busy times when there's, 15 people running around the store doing different things, and you have to know your job and you have to know, and the other piece is, accountability and, being kind of a self-starter, right? Like I don't want to have to tell you the next thing to do. I want to be able to say, this is the goal. Right? The goal is to knock out these 10 arrangements, or the goal is to, make sure this, if we have a whole team of, LR team coming in, make sure everybody gets what they need, make sure, I don't want to have to tell you, okay, now go dip the strawberries. Okay. Now,
Sure.
like you just want someone who has, some either is just innately a self-starter. Yeah. Either they're innately a self-starter or they have to, I think people who play sports definitely kind of get that.
Yeah. That, it's interesting too, raising kids, that's one of the things we talk about a lot. So our oldest is a freshman in high school and he's involved in all kinds of sports. And then our youngest tends to sort of veer towards athletics. But our middle child, our daughter, she's not super athletically inclined. Like she's brilliant and just so organized and all this kind of stuff. But the conversation that we've had is sports can teach you things that you may not otherwise be able to learn. I mean, there's not many environments that teach you the things sports do. And so I think that's probably true. Make good employees, probably.
Yes.
For the most part. Teammates.
Absolutely. Yeah. What gets tricky is when they're in season. So then they're
sure.
So then there's that. But I would say 9 times out of 10. Take an athlete.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So you've gone from that and you're going to continue to pursue the retail space, but it's really started to shift and shape more in the direction of this health and wellness. And your podcast, Creating Wellness, you focus on primarily women as your guests, and it's really about creating an environment of health and wellness and just giving people resources and more information about how they can learn more about becoming more healthy as a woman. And I've not a woman, but I am married to one. And so we've learned some stuff
have 2 daughters.
From your podcast as well. But how did that, outside of just your curiosity, was that it? Was it just your curiosity that kind of started pulling you in that direction?
Yes, actually. Because this started, I guess it's been almost a year ago. So I wasn't even thinking about getting my health coaching certification at that point. I was just really curious. And I had, I recognized that wellness takes all different shapes and sizes, or, all different, there's lots of things that go into wellness. And like I said before, there's financial wellness and there is joy and there's hobby, how you invest your time, what you spend your time doing if you have free time. And then I just thought, there's so many cool women in this area who are doing things that they're passionate about and loving. And I was like, I just want to talk to them.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, I don't know, why not make a podcast? So, yeah. And so, we've had, women writers on, we've had financial people on, Kelly,
right,
who is wonderful.
Yep.
Doctors, homeschool. It's like a huge array of fascinating women. And it's mostly because I was curious and I wanted to have conversations with them. And I thought, I don't know, other people might learn something. Even if, 5 people listen to it, at least that's 5 people who know who this woman is and know that this thing is possible and it's out there.
Absolutely. Well, I think too that, even though you're targeting and you're more specifically oriented towards these successful women and sort of the challenges that you face and the way that you've overcome them and the different tools and resources that you all have used, even hearing Kelly talk about from a financial planning standpoint, how we know that the majority of financial decisions within my client households belong to the spouse, the woman. Generally, they control the checkbook. I mean, statistically, that's what it is. Although statistically, they feel the most left out in those financial conversations.
Yes.
And another person on your podcast was Amy.
Yes.
And I think I called you guys.
You did.
She did a great job of not using very much profanity, which was good for her anyway. But, she and I have talked about this sort of health and wellness, and she does wellness coaching as well.
It was funny because with every person who is on my podcast, I will sit down with them and have coffee or have lunch or, something. And I had met Amy years ago at something completely unrelated. And when someone said, oh, you should talk to Amy Chang and have her, I'm like, what is Amy? Like, why? And they said, well, she's a health coach. I'm like, what's a health coach? Had no idea.
Yeah.
But I had that conversation with her and I ended it and I was like, I want to do what you're doing.
Really?
Yes.
So you hadn't already started that when you had that conversation with her?
No.
Oh, that's great.
And
okay.
just seeing her passion and it pulled so much on what I did as a therapist, which I miss.
Yeah.
That I was like, and she said, well, go, look into it. And so I did.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, so much of it is tied. Like you've talked about just sort of this idea of total wellness.
Yes.
And I think particularly now, we have to deal with stressors that we maybe didn't have to deal with in the past. And that affects everything.
Yes.
I've had several injuries myself where it's like, you don't really know it, and Beetle helps square me away, but you don't know it that it's so stress related.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you finally get past whatever that particular issue is mentally, then you'd be surprised at how much better your body feels.
Yes.
And things like that. And I think all of that stuff is very related. My son and I were just having the same conversation too, because he had an injury and he was completely stressed out about a few things. And then as we talked about it and prayed about it and he got through some things, it's like all of a sudden he started feeling better physically.
Yes.
And I was like,
yes.
This is how it works.
Yeah. And so it's all connected, right? Like,
Sure.
So if you're not healthy, that can trigger anxiety and depression, right? If you're feeling stressed, that can make you not feel good or like things go wrong in your body. So like that connection between your mental health and your physical health is very real.
Well, and one of the biggest stressors that we deal with, and I feel like a therapist a lot, is the idea of your financial plan.
Oh my God.
And if you don't have one,
That
it creates this
Yes.
anxiety.
Yes.
And it creates relationship problems and difficulty communicating, and nobody wants to talk about it. And it's really interesting. I tell people all the time, like I have a much better shot of someone telling me in great detail about their most recent doctor visit than I do them telling me about their financial situation. Nobody wants to talk about it.
No. So what's funny that makes me think about, because I think there's so much emotion and often shame or guilt connected with finances
Sure.
and money. And that's also about, people feel that way about food sometimes too, what they've eaten, what they haven't eaten, how much they've eaten, what they ate in
Their
secret.
diet, their exercise or lack thereof.
Right.
Sure.
That there's this shame or embarrassment or guilt about it. So yeah, it's important to talk about, and it's important to do it in a non-shaming way.
So it may surprise you to know that almost nobody has their act together financially. Almost no one. The majority of people that you think don't. They don't. It's a challenge. It's part of the work that we do.
Well, what does it mean to have your act together financially? Like, how do you define that?
All right. So it covers, like most things, a wide spectrum.
Right.
Having your act financially together the way I would define it with the people that I work with is we're having this conversation regularly and we're making steps. That's it. It's just you can't put it on a shelf.
Right.
So you have to be able to start with where you're starting, which could be now for you. It could be at age 25. I've actually got a 21-year-old that I work with who's like super responsible, you know.
Wow.
And, yeah, I know. And I'm like, you don't even know how great you're doing right now. Like, this is amazing. Your drive and just kind of your focus on these things. And then I have people that are in their 70s that are like, I don't know what to do. I've been spending and I've got too much this and too much debt and too much whatever. And I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. So having your act together, right, like everything, is all shapes and sizes, right?
Right.
So you have to start where you are, and then we put the plan together. And the plan could be, first you need to make sure you have some savings, and then you need to start investing, and then you need to start paying debt off, and then you need to make sure your wills are updated, and then you need to make sure you're taking care of your parents or the other things that are kind of on these long lists. We just have to work towards those and keep the conversation going.
Right.
Because it's the easiest thing, like everything else, to just try it. And then, I mean, we're in January or getting ready to be in January. And so all the gym memberships are going to light up, you know, and then by about March, half of them will be gone. So it's very similar to that, right?
Yeah. So it sounds like what you do a lot is accountability, right? Just like continuing to check in with people. Like if you know, where are you on this? How you doing on that? In a very kind of loving, supportive way. It's not, there's no shame. There's no shame,
but there has to be some responsibility.
There has to be movement.
There does. I mean, you've got to, and there's only, and I know from my own experience that there's only so much bandwidth that we have for the things that are important to us. And so if this doesn't reach that point, and in a lot of cases, I end up with people who come to talk to me and they're like, you're not going to believe this, but here's what's happened. You know, I've just lost my job, or I've just had a job change, and we've never even talked about life insurance before, or my parents, or we're getting ready to have to move them into a retirement home, and how are we going to afford, you know?
Right.
So it's almost always kind of a catalyst. It's rare that someone is really planning well ahead and kind of getting in front of those things. And so a lot of times we triage kind of that immediate need and then begin working from there. So that tends to kind of help soften the blow or the anxiety of it.
Right.
And it's really, I mean, often people will come in, just like most people will come in and just completely unsure and uncertain about what they've got and how bad a shape they're in or what's getting ready to happen. And then they leave and go, okay, well, there's just little pieces, little steps, and we can manage that.
Right. And maybe I'm not as bad off as I thought I was.
Yeah.
Right?
Nobody's as bad off as they thought they were, you know? And it really is. I mean, at some point it's just decision making. Right. Like your nutritional choices. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
I'll tell you a funny story. So years ago, our kids were little. Autumn and I were talking about our nutrition, and she's very healthy. Like, she generally eats very healthy, thankfully. So I get to eat healthy some. Our kids get to eat healthy most of the time. But we were talking about the idea of being organic or only eating whole foods. Mm-hmm. And there's all these knocks against it, right? It's like, it's too expensive. We don't have a grocery store in town that can support it or whatever. And then the kids won't have anything to eat because they're kids and all the normal arguments. And so I said, well, you know, why don't we do like an experiment? So why don't we have a month where we just commit to nothing but whole foods? And she was like, I don't need another project. So if you want to do it, fine. I don't want to hear about it again. And I was like, okay, that was a no. I thought it was a yes. So she was saying, that's a dumb idea. I'm not really interested in doing it. And she's responsible in our house for the grocery shopping and kind of putting all that system for our children together, everything, right? Which I overlooked all those details in this decision making. So
you just assumed it was going to show up at your house.
Listen, it was worse than that. So she goes on a rare vacation with a couple of girlfriends out of town for the weekend. It was the end of January. And so I'm home with the kids for the weekend, and I was like, I have an idea. Let's do real food February. So for the whole month of February, nothing but real foods. Mm-hmm. And my kids were all like, sure. And I said, okay, so first step, we need to clean out everything that we have that's not. So I think we set some parameters. It was if it's got, any chemicals at all, it's out. If it has more than like 4 ingredients, then it's out. And so I called a couple of young college kids that were nearby, and I was like, I've got a bunch of food.
Yep.
Come get it. So they can. So I hadn't quite finished phase 2 of this project before Autumn got home. So she walks into the house, and I literally threw away 98% of everything in our pantry and 80% of everything in our refrigerator and freezer. And I was like, we're going to do
Here we go.
Congratulations. Real Food
Welcome
February
home.
starts tomorrow. And she was like, what are you doing? And it did not go well. And it wasn't a great month either. Like the whole thing.
Did you eat? I mean, did you do it?
Yeah,
You
we
did
100% did. Our grocery bill doubled. Mm-hmm. I don't think it had to be double. But I don't know that we were creative enough to shop kind of the right way. Plus, we were sort of building inventory since I threw everything away.
Right.
So I feel like that initial thrust was maybe more expensive, but it's going to be more expensive. I mean, we made homemade Pop-Tarts with like wheat flour.
That's impressive.
No, they're terrible. I mean, it's awful. Like no one would eat them. No, like with some kind of a marmalade. Like I don't know,
Oh my God.
It was awful. But we did do it, and we learned a lot from it.
I'm sure you did.
Yeah.
But so it's actually funny to go back to something you said that you work with your clients on is one step at a time. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
Right? You don't tell them to do everything all at once.
Right.
It's like make a change that you can sustain.
That was one of the lessons.
Yes.
Yeah. That's one of the lessons.
Maybe I need to apply that to my home life. Yeah.
But that was our experience with something like that. And I still think
but
that
those are good
place for it.
rules. I mean,
Sure.
you don't want something with ingredients you can't pronounce and you have no idea what they are because that's just not, our bodies aren't meant to digest that.
No.
And I mean, whole foods are generally better for us, something we can recognize, as something that coming from the earth, so those are general rules of thumb. But to get there in a day or even a month, to go from eating what we typically eat to that is probably not sustainable.
It was a bit of a jump. I mean, cereal. Good luck finding a whole cereal, by the way, with almond milk. Like that, it just didn't. I think we actually agreed to allow milk.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. But anyway.
I think plenty of people are fine with regular milk. It just is.
Well, this is one of the things I wanted to ask you about. There's so much data and research about whether it's a caveman diet or whether it's a paleo or keto diet or certainly being vegan or plant-based or whatever. So there's all this stuff. And some of the things that I was reading recently really point more to, are you trying to just do things that are better than what you were doing, or are you trying to do things that are optimum for you? And there's a difference.
Huge difference. Right?
Because some of the folks that I was reading were saying, they did a meat only kind of, and they felt really good, and they, a lot of things went well for them. They slept good, like all those sort of key metrics. Most of them were good, but it was like, but is that really the best thing for you?
Right.
And is
it sustainable?
Right. Or is more of a vegan diet better for you than the American diet typical? Well, yeah, but that doesn't mean that vegan is the best thing for you. And not everyone can be, Tom Brady and have a personal chef and do all that kind of stuff, right?
Correct. Yeah. No, so I think what you're getting at all on your own is that different things work for different people, right? There's some people who are vegan and that does work for them. There's some people who, eat everything. I mean, I think the general rule of thumb would be to stay away from processed food as much. Nobody's getting healthy eating.
Yeah, there's no diet that recommends that.
No.
Right.
No. But if what it takes is a lot of experimentation, right? So you try something. I mean, some people are fine with wheat and gluten. Other people really have sensitivity to that.
What has happened with gluten? Like it is now the worst thing in the world.
For some
it's
people,
far worse than heroin or meth or anything. Like, it's got
For
the
some
worst.
people
You
it
don't
is.
want to be. You don't want to be like working for the gluten company. You would be like
although
the
it's
devil.
in everything. And
I know,
and that's
but how
part
did
of
that
the
happen?
problem, right? Because they use the protein, like they use it to congeal things. Like, so it's in everything. And I think what's happened is that a lot of people's guts are not healthy. And when they're not healthy, the gluten protein can get in and cause inflammation and have your immune system react. And that's a very general overview. But
Sure.
But for some people, it's fine. Like, I can eat gluten. I have no problem with gluten. And so,
But I mean, most people that
it's
I
getting
know,
more and more.
It's a little suspect. I
Yes.
mean, their response to it.
Yes.
Like, people are very quick to go, I have to be gluten free.
Yes.
And then they're kind of gluten free some of the time, and then it just sort of depends on whether or not it makes them feel like crap.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Right?
So
Is that normal?
In some ways, it's a very fashionable thing to do right now, right? Like, to be gluten free.
That's sort of what I'm getting at, right?
But there's a gluten allergy, there's gluten sensitivity, which I think a lot of people fall, and then there's celiac disease, and they're three distinct things. And a gluten allergy and celiac disease are very real, and also sensitivity is too. You just react. They're different symptoms for each one, but I think it's getting more and more prevalent because more and more people are getting unhealthy, and they're putting it in more and more things. So we're just exposed to it more. It's not just you're eating, a sandwich and have gluten. It is in anything that has like that needs to be congealed. I mean, it's amazing what it's in.
I know, but you say that like it's this suddenly toxic thing.
It's not suddenly.
I know, that's what I mean. But now we're suddenly paying attention to it.
Yes.
Which I find very strange.
Yes.
And I'm not like a conspiracy theorist or anything. I'm not saying that but there's something about the fact that now this is so if I'm gluten free, I can eat and drink and do whatever with everything that's gluten free, and now suddenly I'm healthier. Like, that's not the approach.
No, because a lot of gluten free stuff has a lot of bad stuff in it.
Right.
Yeah. So again, it's just about trying to eat whole foods, trying to eat something that doesn't have a lot of additives, preservatives. And if you want to try going off of gluten for 3 weeks and then adding it back in and seeing how that feels for you, then you can get a better sense of whether you're actually...
Well, I will tell you, you go off of anything for 3 weeks. When you add it back in, it's not going to feel great.
You don't think? Mm-mm. You have experience with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you stop drinking, if you drink often and you stop drinking, when you start again, you're like, golly, that's
well, you
not
notice
ideal.
more, right?
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's not, whether it's dairy, which causes all kinds of inflammation, or whether it's the sugars and insulin and glucose spike and all that kind of stuff, like, you cut that stuff out. When you bring it back, that's why I think most of us are just happy to have it and just maybe
just
shouldn't enjoy it in such quantity. I guess, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. Like, right. So if you have some symptom that's bothering you, right? Like, I don't know, your indigestion or whatever. Just experiment around with what works, what doesn't work, and it doesn't have to be huge changes.
No, it does. Well, so recently, I am 44, and recently just was kind of thinking about I should probably be on some sort of a multivitamin or whatever, because I don't eat terribly healthy. I mean, I don't particularly worry about my diet a lot, so I eat mostly unhealthy stuff most of the time. I mean, not always, but certainly I'm not healthy all the time, and I don't know what sort of nutrients and everything I'm getting. And so I'm like, gosh, I'm probably missing something. And I ended up getting started taking Athletic Greens.
Yeah.
And it's remarkable in terms of...
So you're still taking, because we talked about it this summer, I think.
Yeah.
You were taking it. Yeah. So you're still doing it?
Absolutely. I mean, and sleep patterns are way better. Digestion system is way better. Generally less hungry, generally more active, more alert, like all these kinds of things. And I don't know, it can't be a complete placebo, but just knowing, and also for me, just mentally knowing that I've got some nutrients that are
Yes.
good for me that I need,
Yes.
rather than trying to find them in the diet and the foods
Well,
that I'm
because
not
the other
particularly careful
pieces,
about.
they're not like the vegetables that we have today, unless they're organically grown, locally and organically grown, don't have all of the nutrients that they had.
That's the goofiest thing to me. Isn't that a shame?
It's horrific.
Yeah.
It's awful.
I mean, you can't, like, you can eat a salad, and today's salad is not the same salad from
Nope.
15 years ago,
Nope.
which
No.
is a little kooky.
I know. It's upsetting.
So beyond food, we get into exercise and all that sort of stuff. Is that part of what you're going to be doing coaching wise?
Yeah. So I'm not a trained trainer, but exercise has always been part of my life. And I would approach exercise like I would approach anything else, right? Like, what's going to work for that person? If it's someone who's completely sedentary, okay, well, let's work on walking up and down the stairs twice a day. Like if it's, so it's making it work for the individual. But yeah, I mean, I certainly can offer. I'm not going to come up with a workout, like a workout that you go to the gym and you lift these weights and you do that. But I will certainly help support what that person can do and should be doing.
I was listening to this doctor recently talk about his quest is for longevity, right? And so he's trying to understand. I think most of the men in his family had cardiovascular disease. He's super healthy, and super wealthy, and so he can just do all the stuff that he wants to do, to create this environment for himself. But anyway, he was talking about how the benefits of cardiovascular health in terms of your cardiorespiratory, like your VO max, that if you can get that to an elite level, then that does more for reducing morbidity than anything else that you can do. Even it reduces your morbidity 5 times, whereas obesity and diabetes increase it by only 2.
Yes. I think I heard that same podcast. I can't remember.
Which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah.
And then he was talking about grip strength. Did you listen?
Yes. And I hung, actually.
Really? How long did you go?
A minute. A minute
good.
was killing me, but I did it.
That's good. Well, I thought that was so interesting about grip strength being a real indicator of longevity.
But it makes sense, right?
Well, kind of. I mean, it's obscure. It's an obscure metrics. I think it's a proxy for a lot of things.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and I think he was saying because
you could just sit here with those little spring hand things and just get really strong forearms, and I don't know that necessarily would help you.
Except when you fall and you're older, right?
Well, that's true. You can grab onto something.
Yes, I mean that's part of what he was saying. That's why it's important,
right?
That because you need to be able to catch it. I mean, when you get older, if you break a hip, that's not good.
Yeah.
So
there was a lot in that.
There was a lot in it.
Yeah, that guy's fascinating.
Yep.
But obviously a bit eccentric and has a lot of resources that most normal people don't. Correct. So,
but it made me think of, have you heard of heart rate variability?
Yes.
Tests? Okay. I'm fascinated. Have you had yours done?
No.
Okay. It's really cool.
So what did it show you?
So heart rate variability, right? Just how well your heartbeat, your heart rate adjusts to what's happening, right? So a lot of people, people who are kind of anxious all the time have a lower variability because they very rarely kind of get into the relaxed state. Mm-hmm. And when your heart rate is elevated, there's a lot of bad things going on. Cortisol, adrenaline, it's just going through your body constantly, which are not good. That causes inflammation and immune response problems. But it tells you, I went in, there's 10 minutes of these things on my wrist, and I come out with a full report of your chronological age versus your biological age, how stressed your adrenal glands are, because if you're stressed all the time, your adrenal glands are working overtime. How often you're in your sympathetic nervous system, which is fight or flight, that kind of anxiety, versus the parasympathetic, which is where you're more relaxed, and all of that stuff's connected, and so when I started this program, part of what I've started to do is do just 5 minutes of meditation in the morning. And I think it's really helped me. Like my heart rate variability was really good. And the woman who did it, she's like, do you do a lot of yoga? And I'm like, I'm meditating now. Like,
yes, I do. All right. So the variability though, it's not, I was under the impression that it was like the recovery, like how quickly you can go into a higher heart rate from a lower one and how quickly you can come back to your lower heart. Is that right?
Yes.
But but you're talking also about just the sort of the span on the bell curve.
Well, so they do it over a 10-minute thing. So they, and they're talking to you during it. So, like right now I'm more animated than I was when I was listening to, so it's kind of like it records, when your heart rate goes up, if they're talking about, when I was getting it done, my son had just gotten a concussion at school. And so I was about to go pick him up at school. So when I was talking about that, I got more anxious, but then I was able to kind of settle back down pretty quickly. So that's what it tests, and that's what it records.
But it's also something then you can condition yourself to improve.
Yes. Yes. So you wear like a little heart monitor now? No, but on the Apple Watches they have, you can do it. They have.
So is there like an app that kind of, I know that it keeps up, mine keeps up with my heart rate if I ask for it or something.
Yeah. There is something that you can, I haven't done it, but yes, You can do it on your Apple Watch. But it's a really good, and then it kind of reminds you to do that kind of deep breathing, that kind of settling down.
Well, it has the Apple Watch has a reminder that says breathe, which is just really obnoxious.
Yeah, because it's never at the right time.
No, it's always at the worst time. I don't want to breathe. I hold my breath. When it tells me to breathe, I stop breathing. Just
to be.
Well, they're watching and listening to everything we're doing.
I know
anyway,
they are.
So. Okay, so all right. Well, we've covered a tremendous amount.
Yes.
One of the things, so from whether it's nutritionally with your retail space or this new venture with health and wellness coaching, baby steps, right? We've kind of mentioned that a few times. Like, what are the things outside of come see me, come talk to me, have a consultation type of thing? What are the things that somebody just needs to do going, you know what, this makes sense to me. Like, I should probably do something. What should I start doing? What are those first couple of steps?
Just kind of taking a good look at what it is you're wanting to change, right? So I think a lot of people are like, oh, I want to lose 10 pounds, or I want to, particularly with the new year. Yeah, this year I'm going to get on it. I'm going to get to the gym. I'm going to. So take it a step farther and ask yourself why, right? What's going to be different when you lose those 10 pounds? What do you anticipate? How are you going to feel? How are you going to look? Why is that 10 pounds important? Why is it important to get to the gym? What's the meaning of it to you? Because we all know what to do, right? We all know what to do.
Plenty of information out there.
Plenty of information. Mm-hmm. And so just kind of understanding what's stopping us from doing it. That's where I see kind of my role being, like helping you understand what's stopping you and helping you kind of work through that. There's a lot of emotions that goes into most decisions we make, and particularly when it's about our own bodies. So that would be my advice.
Self-assessment
and honest assessment, which can
most
be really
people,
hard.
Most of us can't really be honest about stuff like that. Like,
I think
there's probably a real reason why I don't go to the gym as often as I should. Mm-hmm. But I'm not really willing to give that enough thought to tell myself what that real reason is. You know what I mean? Like, that's a
right. Well, maybe you're not a gym person, and that's fine. But it's your feelings about not going to the gym, right? So now you're like, well, shit, I knew I should be going to the gym.
Yeah.
And I'm not. Now I don't want to think about why I'm not going. But maybe it's like you're better just taking your dog for a walk. Like, maybe that's something that's going to work better for you. And then. It's that kind of like problem solving, thinking through options, letting go of whatever guilt and shoulds and, not everybody's a gym person.
Well, and, one of the benefits of having such a broad conversation, we've talked about so many different areas that need attention mm-hmm. and probably need improvement. And so it doesn't have to necessarily be that if your goal is to lose weight per se, a better measurement of something you can accomplish might be on a different plane. It might have something more to do with whether it's nutrition or exercise that might directly impact that goal, but it might be better sleep. It might be meditation. It might be whatever to reduce anxiety. Like just figure out a way to get your mind healthier.
Well, or it might be that, I'm not really happy in my relationship.
Sure.
And maybe if I lose 10 pounds, he'll look at me differently or whatever. What is it about that 10 pounds that's so important to you? So, it's just asking yourself that question and trying to figure that out.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. Before you go, I have a couple questions that I may know the answer to one of them anyway, but from a financial planning standpoint, what is maybe the best financial decision you've ever made or best piece of financial advice you've ever been given?
Jeez, Bob. Well, I think probably your advice today, which is to take it one step at a time, because when I think about it, I get overwhelmed. I mean, we have some pieces in place. But, I think to apply what I think works with health to what you say works with finances, to just, find somebody to talk to, take it one step at a time.
Okay. That was a great plug also.
All right.
Good answer.
Like that?
Okay. All right. So what is the biggest financial mistake you've ever made or the worst financial decision? Was that the financing of the original?
Yes. Yeah. And it's still impacting us.
Yeah.
I mean, it just was not a smart thing to do. And, we'll be fine, but it's,
if you could go back and do it over again, you would not have done that.
No.
Yeah. And I think that, the interesting thing is you've got to have that when you're making decisions that impact your finances like that significantly. Right. And I know you weren't trying to do that to become a multimillionaire.
No.
Right. But when you make those kinds of decisions, you have to have some stability first. Right. You should have some stability first.
Right.
Like right now, there's a lot of things going on in the investment world that people are really chasing, whether it's cryptocurrencies or real estate craziness or whatever. A lot of people are really quick to say, this is going to be my thing. And if you don't have financial stability kind of underneath those decisions, then it really puts you at risk. And some people are going to be fine and they're going to make it work and it's going to be successful for them. But for most people, if you don't have some stability underneath that, that's a tough thing. And you don't fully understand kind of the risks that you're taking.
Exactly.
Which, for you, I think probably you have the work ethic and the drive and the determination and the smarts and the organizational skills to make that business model work for you. Had that happened, like say with COVID, that would have been a bad scenario for you, because immediately those savings that you'd worked so hard for so many years would be gone.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's lessons for other people to learn, hopefully, right?
Yes. Yeah. And I will never make that mistake again.
Yeah.
So,
well, thank you so much for spending time with me.
It was a lot of fun.
That was a good conversation. We did. There's a lot. I feel like I have a lot more to cover, but there's a lot that we did cover, and I just appreciate your time. I'm so grateful to have you around and your family around. You guys are such a great resource to our community, and looking forward to whatever's next with Edible Arrangements and continue on that path, as well as your podcast, Creating Wellness, and then now your new coaching.
Thank you.
Your health and wellness coaching gigs. That'll be great.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, please like and subscribe on whatever platform or channels we're on, and find out more information about what we do at Southeast Retirement Planners at www.seretirementplanners.com. Thanks. Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor. Member of FINRA, SIPC. Southeast Retirement Planners is not affiliated with LPL Financial or registered as a broker-dealer or investment advisor.